and good citizens of Staffordshire, good morrow and welcome. My name is Sir Brian.
And I am Sir Edward. I am Sir James. I am Sir Ian.
Okay, you? I am Sir Nathan. You?
I am Sir James. Sir Ian.
We represent the Order of the Marshal, which is a knightly order that strives to uphold the chivalric principles of honor, integrity, service, and charity. And in accordance with these principles, we have pledged to donate all the proceeds that we may acquire from this demonstration to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Good gentles, if you're not familiar with this most noble charity, it is an organization that endeavors to grant a special wish to those children that suffer from a grievous illness or injury. At the end of our demonstration, we will have available an offering helm held by our honorary page, Miles the Magnificent. Stand up, Miles. We'd be most grateful and honored if you join us in the support of this worthy cause. As for our demonstration, it'll be comprised of 3 parts. The first part will be a brief history on the longsword, followed by a display of the 4 primary guards, as well as the master cuts used to break those guards. The second part will be a short description on the physical attributes of the longsword. This will be followed by an explanation on how the advancement of armor had a detrimental impact upon the combat effectiveness of the longsword. The third part will be an actual duel between Sir Edward and I assure you, good gentles, this will not be choreographed or staged combat. You will witness Sir Edward and I execute our attacks at full speed and with the absolute intent of hitting each other. However, we will be pulling back the power of our cuts, for although we're wearing protective equipment and our blades are not sharp, they are real steel and they will break bones. After our duel, we'll now have a bonus honor inspection between Sir Nathan and Sir James, which requires totally different techniques, but very historically accurate. And so, we begin.
Absolutely. What we are doing here today is a demonstration of an actual medieval martial art. This comes to us from medieval Germany, simply because several of the period masters from that time were kind enough to write it down for us to recreate today. We're going to be fighting with blunt weapons today, but they replicate the weight and the balance and the maneuverability of the actual sharp weapons that were used in the day. By the time of our Faire here, the late 16th century, it had pretty much evolved into a sport weapon, which is very similar to what we were actually using for this demonstration. The reason we have chosen to focus on the longsword is because it is the best teaching weapon within this martial art. The martial art is designed to scale all the way down to being completely unarmed or using just a dagger, and all the way up to the large two-handed weapons, such as pole arms and large two-handed swords and that sort of thing. The reason why the longsword is a good teaching weapon is because it bridges the gap. It is weighted and sized such that it is primarily meant for use with 2 hands, but can also be used with only 1. You'll see some techniques today, probably, in which case we let go with 1 hand and see some single-handed use. The vast majority of the time it is a 2-handed weapon, however. Now, can anybody tell me what the primary goal is in a sword fight?
Decapitate the other guy.
Decapitate? Well, that can work. What?
Stick him with the pointy end.
Stick him with the pointy end. That's always a really good answer, but that's really not the primary goal. The primary goal in a sword fight is to make sure you survive. You want to make sure you live. If you die while you're attacking the other person, then you've not gained anything. If both people hit each other simultaneously and they both die, nobody's won. You have to make sure that you live, and you really cannot afford to be touched by the enemy's sword. So all of our attacks are designed to be efficient. They're designed to be defensive as well as offensive. And you can always thank the Germans for being efficient in this case. So we'll look at the first primary attack in this system. The first attack is called the Zornhell. This means the strike of wrath. It's called this because it is the most straightforward and fastest attack that we have in our arsenal here. It is an attack that goes straight down the center line towards the opponent's chest or his head, and you're basically shooting the tip out towards him. It's just a very straightforward attack like this, very simple. We call this like I said, the strike of wrath because of how straightforward it is, how deadly it is, and very fast. But it also defends against another Zornhell. If Sir Brian is trying to attack me with a Zornhell, a Zornhau into it, and I can take control of this situation. And all I had to do was step that way. It puts me in a position where just angling my hands a little, stepping that way, I have protected myself from his Zornhau while hitting him in the chest with mine. Now you'll notice we were standing in a position like this before we attacked. This is a guard that is called Vom Tag. This means from the roof. We call it this because the sword is pointed towards the sky. There are two positions that are called this. There's the high Vom Tag and then there's the shoulder Vom Tag. And it looks the same on both sides. Now if Sir Brian is standing in Vom Tag, to defeat this, what we're going to want to do is something called the Zwerkhau. This means the crosswise strike. It's called this because it is a horizontal crossing strike. Done on this side, it looks like that. If it's done to the other side, it comes this way. It's a horizontal strike towards the upper quadrant. In this case, it would be a little silly for me to attack to this side because that's where he's defending. So in this case, I want to do this strike to my right, hitting his left side up in the head or in the shoulder area. And if his sword comes forward at this moment, you can see I'm going to catch it on my crossguard. These crossguards aren't just ornamental, they actually serve a useful purpose here. Now if he's standing in a different position, let's say flug, this is called flug, which means the plow. Think of plow's handles. He's protecting the lower quadrant. If I attack down here, I'm not going to get anything through. So what we're going to do is an attack that's actually at first going to look a lot like the Zornhau. We're attacking straight into the center, but if you'll notice something, I'm going to do it really slow here. The sword inverts on the way in, and then we strike. Now, you might ask, why do we rotate the sword like this? It looks a little strange. The reason is very simple body mechanics. In this case, if I go in, if I don't rotate the sword, I end up in a position which might work, but he can get around my sword. He can push my sword off the line a little bit. The reason for this is because my wrist is a little bent to do this. If we rotate the sword over and then go into what we refer to as the thumb grip, which you can see here, I raise my thumb up onto the blade to brace it. As I'm doing this, my wrist is completely straight, my thumb is bracing the blade. I can use one hand to resist his counterattack. I don't even need the strength of both hands. Now, if Sir Brian gets into another position, let's say Alber. Yeah. Sir Brian is in a position that is called Alber. This means the fool. Now, the reason why it's called this is not because it's foolish for him to be in this position, but rather because I would be a fool to assume that he's as open as he wants me to believe. If he's in this position, the most likely scenario is that he just did a large Oberhau and missed, and he's cut down to that position. But he could also be doing this to goad me into attacking. He wants me to attack high. And the reason for this is because if I just come in and attack, all he has to do is raise his sword. He's going to hit me in the hands, or I'm going to walk right into the point. This is really bad for me. So what we're going to do here is something that is a little counterintuitive. We're going to do an attack that is called the Scheitelhau. This means the parting strike. Now don't think of it in terms of departing the fight or leaving or something along those lines. It's more like I'm going to part his hair. I'm going to cut his head in half. Now the way this works is I have to get myself out of way of his sword. So I'm going to bring my foot back and I'm going to snap my hands very high. If I do this correctly, I hit him in the head with enough time to get out of the way before his sword rises up and hits me. It has to be a very quick action, so this does carry some risk, but it allows us to attack him in a way that does not get us hit in return. Now, so Sir Brian is now taking the last of our guards here. This is called ox. Now, in German, that means, strangely enough, ox. It's, think of it like the horns on the ox's head. This is designed to protect the upper part of your body and your head from attack. Now, since he's on this side, I'm going to have to attack to this side, and we're going to use a strike that is called the Krumpau. This means the crooked strike. We call it the crooked strike because it's a strike that attacks at an angle. It's almost like a windshield wiper sort of motion. If I'm attacking to this side, I go this way. If I'm attacking to my right, I attack with the back edge of the sword. You'll notice that I kind of rotate it a little bit in my hand, and it attacks that way. Depending on my distance, I can attack him in the head, I can get him in the hands, I can get him in the shoulder, any of those kinds of positions. And because I've stepped out this way a little bit, all I did was step across. I'm a little bit out of range for him to hit me. His sword is going past me a little bit. It would be very hard for him to swing it in such a way that would have any kind of power at that position. If I'm a little too far away to hit him directly, I will knock his sword away. I hit him. And I believe that concludes all 5 of the attempts. Sir David. Thank you.
Good ladies and gentlemen, this is the classic medieval longsword. It is often depicted today as a brute hacking weapon meant for cleaving your foes. The reality could not be farther from that. The longsword is an incredibly versatile weapon, made to be useful in almost any situation. It bridges the gap quite nicely between the lighter, quicker single-handed swords or the more powerful, slower, great two-handed swords. They can be used in 1 or 2 hands. Imagine a knight riding by on horseback, cutting down his foes while still holding the reins. Or, once dismounted, fighting foes with 2 hands, meting out powerful blows. The longsword is made to be able to make quick, agile fencing maneuvers, while also having enough power to split a man in half. The blade is often made for a combination of thrusting and cutting, as to be versatile, as always with the longsword. But the weapon part of the longsword does not end here. The crossguard, while primarily there to defend yourself from oncoming attacks, or to defend your hand in a bind, also makes a great striking weapon. The longsword is about 3.5 pounds, and most of its mass is concentrated here. The crossguard focuses all of that energy into one small point. It can make a very terrible blow onto an opponent. The grip is made to be comfortable, use either 1 or 2 hands, and it's just about the only part of the longsword you shouldn't be beating people with. Last but not least, we have the pommel. The pommel is primarily there to counterbalance the sword, make it less blade heavy and more agile. But it is a weight on the end of a large lever and it's made out of steel. I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this. It's a wonderful bludgeoning weapon, and we know this not only because it's illustrated in the fight books of the period, but the English word pummel, to pummel your opponent today, pummel your opponent into submission. The moves I mentioned are often used in armored combat, which now Sir James will demonstrate to you. Sir James.
Thank you, Sir Nathan. As we've covered, the longsword is a very versatile weapon. So as it progressed from little to no armor, people became essentially covered from head to toe in armor. As such, you couldn't use the normal cuts that Sir Brian and Sir Edward demonstrated because this just does nothing. If armor didn't work, Iron Man would be a very short movie. But people with armor, just like Mr. Stark, typically had at least a decent amount of money. So if you were able to capture them alive, you could ransom them off to their family or to their lords. So the idea of fighting someone in armor was not always to kill them. So you'd use essentially non-lethal techniques to disable them, to capture them. The first one is a grip called half swording, in which you grip the sword about halfway up the blade. You would do this to thrust at the typical openings that would have no armor or only be covered by mail, armpits, back of the leg, or the groin. You can also use it as a leveraging tool like this. So if Sir Nathan is taking a guard, I simply come across, put my leg behind his, and I can knock him to the ground. At that point, it becomes a wrestling match, and since he's on the ground and he's wearing a lot of armor, chances are I'm going to win. The other way is using the reverse grip, which, as Sir Nathan said, a large amount of the weight of the sword is in the handle. So, as you're hitting him with it, you basically just bludgeon him until you get him disoriented enough to close in, to grapple, to take things to the ground. The other way is using the cross guard, in which to hook the back of the head and pull him off guard, hook the back of the legs. Anything I can do to get him off balance or take control is what I want to do. Now, Sir Brian and Sir Edward will be doing a demonstration of unarmored combat first. So while they do wear some armor, this is for safety purposes. So if they're hitting the hands on the gauntlets or the helmet, we will be counting it as a point. The match will go to 3 points. And as we covered earlier, you don't want to die, so should they hit each other at the same time, or what we call one tempo afterwards, meaning somebody hits and the other gets hit right after, that's a no-point score, so they'll just reset and we'll continue again. After their unarmored duel, Sir Nathan and I will be fighting in harness as well. So, Sir Brian.
Good gentles, we'll begin our duel momentarily. First, a precautionary word. Do not try this at home. Not without proper training and the appropriate safety equipment. You'll get grievously injured. Go green. Sir Edward, stand you ready?
I am ready.
Sir Edward in the arm. A point for Sir Brian.
Sir Brian, everyone.
I mean business.
I see this.
Hit him in the body now.
Nope. That's a double. Yeah. The other shoulder too.
Okay. Double kill, no points are scored.
This is exactly what we try to avoid. As you can see, we didn't defend ourselves. I struck him in the side, he struck me in the shoulder.
We really fight way too often.
We know each other's tricks and it leads to this.
Cicada.
Well, we get a free ride. Nice.
Sir Edward has struck Sir Brian upon the arm. He is now desperately trying to fight with the nub.
It's only a flesh wound.
That sounds painful.
Just but a scratch.
Just but a scratch.
Just but a flesh wound.
Get back out. Bite your ear off.
Double kill.
Double kill. Don't do that. Just let me hit you.
Hold still.
Stop moving. Good. Well, did I get a thrust in your hand? No. You got my hand, so that's good. All right. Feel out.
Brian has struck Sir Edward on the hand. A point for Sir Brian.
Brian.
2-1 in favor of Sir Brian.
Would have been good, but yeah.
All right, double kill, no points were scored.
Double kill. Mr. Lannister lost his other hand, and Mr. Ansel lost a pretty man now.
Grass is looking up along.
Oh, you got my grip. Again. Oh, okay. Center up. Center up. Nothing. We didn't get in good hands. Got me on the after blow. Yeah.
Another double. They're both losing terribly.
See, in a case like this, where I hit him in the arm, and he hit me in the arm, there was a full, what we refer to as a full tempo between them. But we still count this as a double hit, because in that moment where you've been struck, you can still be dangerous enough to land a counterattack before you succumb to your wounds. So once again, we didn't defend. Yes. Double. Boy, that would have been really dead on both of parts. We're both really, really dead. We've been killed to death.
We're killed to death.
Killed to death.
Make them follow.
Server instructs Sir Brian upon the arm. The match is his.
Huzzah!
Sure. Oh, I just had something bad happen. The lens fell out of my glasses.
What could not have happened 5 minutes ago?
All right. Next, in just a moment here, our guys are armoring up. We are going to, they have to get their helmets on and that sort of thing. We're going to do a little bit of harness specting. As I started to explain to you, what this means is that harness means armor, for anybody who's worrying about that. The harness specting simply just means fighting in armor. These gentlemen are going to use some techniques that are a little different than what we just showed you, because the techniques around the armor are about bypassing the armor, getting into the gaps, and some of the more dangerous parts of it that we can't show you involve using the armor against your opponent to break his arms, break his legs, break whatever you can get your hands on. There's the armor itself can be very restrictive, and so you can maneuver the arm so that maneuver the armor or grab their arm, do arm breaks, that sort of thing, where the inflexibility of the armor will bend their joints beyond their breaking point. If these gentlemen are just about ready, we can start. If because some of those other parts that I was just explaining are a little dangerous, they will not be doing those. They will be doing the thrusts and so forth towards the gaps in the armor. You ready?
Stand here. I'll be the marshal of the list. If I call you to hold, you hold. Acknowledge by saying aye. Aye.
He has planned to sweat me to death before we begin.
So Nathan, stand ye here. I will be the marshal of the list. When I call hold, you hold.
Aye. Aye.
Knight, stand you ready.
Aye. Aye.
Fight. Hold. Sir Nathan has scored a good thrust to Sir James's throat.
Hey.
Reset the scoreboard.
Handicap.
Let's go with that. Light, stand, you ready?
Aye.
Fight! Hold! Push your palm of your hand. Sir James scored a thrust to the palm of Sir Nathan's hand. Point for Sir James.
Yay.
Light, stand, you ready?
Aye. Aye.
Fight! Oh! Sir Nathan scored a glancing blow with his mort slug onto the helm of Sir James. Point for Sir Nathan. Nice. Take 2 paces this way. Towards the fence. 2 paces towards the fence. Good. Face forward for Nathan. Good. Knight, stand, you ready?
Aye.
Fight! Okay. Reset. Stanley here to James. Stanley here to Nathan. All right, Stan, you ready? Right. Nathan, are you okay? Yeah. Nathan's fine. A good thrust by Sir James to the throat and face of Sir Nathan. The score is tied, 2 each. Next point wins the match. Right, Stanley, ready? Aye. Fight.
Yeah, I'm good. Is that an actual hit?
I was way off balance, and that's definitely his.
Sir Nathan, stand over here. Sir Nathan! Rob, Sir James, onward! Until he was out of balance, and unable to defend himself properly. Sir Nathan is the winner of this match. Well done, Sir Nathan. My lords and ladies, the Miles, you're on. Miles the Magnificent. This concludes our demonstration. Again, we do this solely for donations to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Your generosity would be much appreciated. And also, if you donate $5 or more, you get a rare, limited edition, token of our affection, Order of the Marshal bin Make-A-Wish. I hear it's going to be all the rage this fall. Thank you for your attention.
If anybody is interested in learning more about this, or you have any questions, we'll be available to answer questions here or over at our encampment by the maypole out in the middle of the field. We'll be here for the remainder of the day. We have one more sword demonstration at 4 o'clock this afternoon. We are going to try to add a little bit of a cutting demonstration if we have time and if we have space to do it. If you have any further questions, this is very easy to get into if you have any interest in pursuing it at all. There are various groups around here that are teaching how to do this, and many study groups get started just by a couple of guys buying a book and starting to work it out themselves. You'd be surprised how many of our groups get started this way. If you have any interest, please feel free to ask. We are here.